I'm Charlie Jagno, Clerk of Court of St. Landry Parish. I've been in this job since 1992, and it's been my pleasure to serve the people of St. Landry Parish as their clerk. One of the favorite parts of my job is the archives and the responsibilities and the opportunities that go along with taking care of the archives of such an old parish. We were part of Imperial St. Landry Parish when it was created. And so we have records that go way back to the 1700s. Matter of fact, this courthouse was completed in 1941, but the first courthouse was built here in about 1920, and I'm sorry, 1837. There was also a structure here in 1806. 1820, it burned down, and it burned down again in 1939. That's when the present courthouse was built. Fortunately, the records were kept in an outbuilding and they weren't lost. So we have records all the way back to the colonial period. The first clerk here was Judge Lee, and he served as a clerk from 1805 to 1807. He became the parish probate judge from 1807 and he served until 1842. Our colonial records cover a period of 1764 to 1803. They're on microfilm here and available on microfilm, and they're also at the state archives. The notarial records span the time period of 1820 to 1850, and the first parish recorder was here in 1845. We have records that are imaged and indexed in various periods from the 1800s to present, and in mid 2015 we should have a constant record that's imaged and indexed and available online from 1800 to the present day. We're pretty proud of that, and that should be completed early next year. I'd like to introduce our archivist, a former archivist who's retired now, Mr. Keith Fontenot, and he can expand on what I've told you about our records here in St. Landry Parish. Thank you.
He probably retired in that year because of poor health, and he lives to 1850. The parish judge was also the head of the governing body of the parish. You had the judge, you had and the JPs that composed the parish government prior to 1811. And then by 1811, you have the formation of the police jury. So you did have issues to deal with, stray animals. Also, you had legislation that was passed concerning roads, and also for runaway slaves, or patrols, as they were called. The parish government at that time encompassed an area that went from the Atchafalaya to the Sabine, to the Gulf, and north to Natchitoches and Rapides. So we're looking at the modern parishes of Cameron, Calcasieu, Beauregard, Allen, Jefferson Davis, Acadia, and Evangeline. In 1840, the western half of St. Landry is divided, and the western part becomes Imperial Calcasieu. So out of Imperial Calcasieu, you have Cameron, Beauregard, Allen, and Jefferson Davis that are formed. And on the eastern side of Bayou Nipiquet, you have Acadia, 1885, and Evangeline in 1912. What's interesting about Evangeline Parish is there was a three-way race in 1911 for the new parish seat between Eunice, Mamou, and Ville Platte. Ville Platte wins, and the residents of Eunice, Louisiana, do not want to be part of the new parish. So they petition to be maintained within the mother parish. And that's how you have the Panhandle for St. Landry Parish. The records in the office, again, as a researcher comes in, could be overwhelmed and perplexed of what is available. Basically, they start off with marriages, estates, or probates, which will give you what a person owned at the time of their death. It's essential to remember that the probate really is a very valuable document. It gives you heirs. It also lists spouses and the material culture of sales, appraisals of how many slaves, how much land, how many rifles or shovels or hogs or cattle or the brand. So the probate is a very necessary record series to dwell into. Marriages are very important. However, they do have their shortcomings. Some of our best ones begin in 1807, and they do list the parents and the nativity or place of birth of the bride and the bridegroom. However, after 1865, the civil licenses do not list the parents or the nativity, and it's very important that they were married in, say, the Catholic Church, because Reverend Hebert, Southwest Louisiana Records, will normally give the names of the parents. And again, you have to deal with the handwriting, the spelling, and people do not really know how lucky they are with typed material, and this old calligraphy is very beautiful. However, it's difficult to interpret sometimes. If you want to flesh out your ancestor, you also need to look in conveyance records, what they bought, what they sold, what type of business were they conducting. You have partnership books. You also have miscellaneous records, which are all non-real estate acts from 1854 to 1965. The rationale for that was that they did not want to clutter their conveyance books with sundry or miscellaneous acts. But the miscellaneous books can give you valuable information on a release of tutor or tutrix, or of an administrator of an estate, where they list the child's parent that's deceased, and in some cases they also list the grandparents. But again, you're dealing with handwriting, and a lot of this stuff is in French. And there's another problem where some places an individual will go by the English equivalent, and other places they will go by the French. There's always that proverbial case where Mr. Lejeune sells property to his son, Mr. Young, or Mr. William Johnson is also known as Guillaume Janson. So you have that issue, plus you also have phonetic spellings, which could, give an individual problems, because in a lot of cases you have where the individual could come in, not educated, couldn't read, couldn't write. He was a Frenchman, maybe the guy behind the desk was an Englishman, an American, an Anglo. Something was said, something was put down. Now, again, that's the human condition of, what is said and what is understood. How much of a hearing loss did the clerk or judge have is up to question. Other documents that I have found over the years that are of interest would also be the court minute books. Case in point, in 1824, we do have a Robert D. Wins that appears in the district court and has his medical diploma recorded, whereby he is obtaining the license to practice medicine in the state of Louisiana as a physician. Next page, we come to a Simon Weston, who is also obtaining a certificate from the medical board at New Orleans, and his medical diploma is recorded in the conveyances. This one happens to be in French. Also, you can find, I know there's one medical diploma from Jefferson College in Philadelphia. That's in the miscellaneous books in the 1850s, and it's written in Latin. Also, the minute books will contain immigration information. People are foreign aliens who wish to become citizens of the United States. They will appear before the district judge with a stated intention that they would like to become a U.S. citizen, thereby renouncing the King of Prussia, or the Tsar of Russia, or the King of France, or Her Majesty Queen Victoria. This continues in the clerk's office till 1912. Then you have the U.S. Board of Immigration, or that comes and takes that responsibility away from your local district court. To continue, when a researcher comes in, there are several problems you might encounter. First of all, this is what you call an education in itself. First of all, you have the document. What is the purpose of the document? What does it do? Secondly, you have the handwriting. Then you have the French, English, and even English sometimes is hard to decipher. So you have certain pitfalls that you might encounter being a new researcher. Again, this is basically detective work. You've had several different groups of individuals that made very important contributions to the formation of the parish and also of Southwest Louisiana. What gives us this unusual cultural mosaic or gumbo, le joie de vie. So, as we go through the records, you have conveyances, marriages, probates, civil suits, mortgages, and a whole host of other record series that can add flesh to your ancestors' bones. You would probably want to, know what they did, how life was. Again, there's a lot of information that can be gleaned from the probate, as I stressed earlier. What they owned, what was important, and we also need to mention that you had free people of color that were living, buying property, going into litigation, and so forth. Two people that come to mind are Martin Donata, who dies in 1848, and it's probably one of the richest men in the parish at that time, and he's also a banker. He will lend money to his white ancestors. I mean, not ancestors, but neighbors. We find also Manon Baldwin. She's a free woman of color. She had a business establishment across the street from the courthouse on the corner of Landry and Court. She also had a contract to provide food and that to the parish jail, which was across the street. I would recommend highly the book by Carl Brasso, Keith Fontenot, and Claude Ube, Creoles in the Bayou Country. Again, Creole has several different meanings. With a small c, it's the language. The capital C, it's the individual who was normally a person of either Spanish or French ancestry born in the New World. And again, you had Creoles of color. They were of mixed ancestry. You will find in the case of Antoine Simeon, he was white, he was from Marseille, France. He comes in the colonial days, and in 1806, he gives a large donation of land, slaves, and other chattel property to Marie Simeon. So this group of individuals were of European and African ancestry, but they were free. They could buy property, engage in business. Martin Donata had a interest in Veracruz, Mexico. Found out there was power of attorney where he was giving his brother power to conduct business on his behalf in Veracruz. It's also important to look in one book, which is, again, the Physician's Handbook, which starts in 1882. What is of interest is that we have a R.E. Donato who in October the 7th, 1895, appeared before the Louisiana Medical Board and examiners, and that he was considered to be well-versed and granted the authority to practice medicine in the state of Louisiana. He might well be one of the first black physicians in the parish at that time. Now again, when you're talking medicine, you had these traiteurs, or these individuals who could also come up with homemade concoctions or something, and you know, to aid in curing whatever ailment you had. Again, the success rate could be anybody's guess, but again, there was probably some base or facting reason that some of this herbs or stuff actually worked and helped individuals to get over certain illnesses and that. The free people of color were very prevalent in the parish. You had the Donatos, the Freelos, the Simeons, the Lamels, and many other individuals. There was also Rachel Hicks, that was a businesswoman that lived in Opelousas. And you will also find by the 1880s, the Donatos had moved to California, and they are still conducting business here in Louisiana. So they were landed, they owned property. There are divorce cases, civil litigation concerning outstanding debts, and so forth. And this group really, until quite recently, has not really been given its fair, its due to, and recognize, and for the present day people to recognize the valuable contribution that these individuals made to the culture and history of the parish.